Well, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know that I just wanna look some more. And I won't be satisfied till there's nothing left that I haven't tried. For some people it's an easy choice, but for
projects that will grab your attention. And for those of you who are going to be taking the senior team or the master's project class, which I suspect is almost all of you, the senior team project class is a capstone class which integrates what you've been learning during your undergraduate curriculum. And similarly, the master's project, the same for the master's curriculum. So these projects represent a whole range of skills. And in addition, students typically have to learn a number of other things too in order to do these projects. So our first project is going to be with Frank Ithapolco, Kevin Moran, and Emery Edgware, and they're going to be doing a project in which they've done an iPhone application and a web application to keep track of scoring for a dart game. More complicated than it sounds and more interesting than it sounds. And I'd also like to point out that the sponsor of this is John Rajoy, who is a graduate of this computer science program a few years ago. But see, we recycle our graduates so that we get projects out of them later as sponsors. Okay, so let's welcome Team Awesome.
Hello everyone, I'm Kevin, this is Frank and this is Emery. We call it the Gamekeeper. It's a scorekeeping app for the game of cricket. It's a specific kind of dart game. So I'll give you a quick overview. So it's a dart scorekeeping app. It's kind of almost three parts in one. It's the iPhone application. We use MRE, which is actually another master's presentation that we use for our networking. It's a web service that we use to sync the information from the iPhone with the actual application, and then the actual web application. So to start things off, why did we kind of do an iPhone and web app combo? So first of all, for the iPhone, obviously it's gotten huge. This is like the number of online requests from individual phones, and you can see iPhone's actually taken up more than half of it, and it's actually grown since this is from October. It's important because one, it's one of the first phones with a true multi-touch user interface. It uses an accelerometer, which we actually use for a couple cool things in the iPhone application. It utilizes Apple's Cocoa Touch framework. And for the kind of problem that we have with the iPhone is kind of screen real estate. Obviously with the computer, much bigger room of interfaces, right? You can switch screens, much better resolution. And the thing with the iPhone is the resolution is only 480 by 320, so you're kind of cramming everything into a little tiny space. Which is actually one of the big parts of our application was to see how much we can actually fit into one tiny screen. So for the actual computer, we can handle heavy processes. This was important because not only does the web app mimic what the iPhone does, but it's also a statistics generator. It'll create different charts on old games you've played, who you're playing against, etc. So now for a quick overview of the cricket dart game. Here's how the scoring works. You have the numbers 15 through 20 only, and you have bullseye. Any other one's considered a miss. The way you keep track, and this is actually one thing we try to do, we try to mimic the barroom scene. If you hit the number once, you have a single slash. Hit the number twice, it turns into an X. The number 3 times, you have a circle around it. Once the circle's around the number, you can finally start scoring on it, as in generating points. And the way it works is if it's a circle around it, that means the number is considered open. If everyone closes the number or opens, you can no longer score on it, you move to the next number. The point of the game is to close out every single number, and whoever has the most points wins. So a quick thing on the iPhone application design. The development environment we use, for iPhone we basically use 3 different tools. We have Xcode, which is Apple's main code IDE. It's really nice because it has support for, for Interface Builder, which is really nice. It's really clean. It's basically like a drag and drop interface that you customize through the code. And then we use what's called instruments, and this is a tool we allow to run when we're actually running the application to check for memory leaks and basically any big bugs that are crashing our program. Because obviously with the iPhone, you have very little memory, you have very little RAM to work with. It's going to crash if you don't release stuff, dealloc, etc.
Presumably you're not running these on the iPhone while you're doing this development.
No, we run it through the simulator.
On the iPhone.
Yeah, no, definitely not. That would destroy the iPhone for sure. So a quick touch on the interface. This is the general layout of our interface. When you select what button you hit, and the dartboard will change accordingly. Once you select it, you select either the single, the triple, single, double. It's a simple tap. And you'll notice that on the actual scoreboard that we showed before, it actually mimics those slashes on top of the buttons, so that way you don't have to go to the scoreboard every single time to view. And this scrollable interface right here, it's our history board, so you can backtrack through the entire game, so you can see who's been hitting what, etc. All the names are color-coded to whatever turn they were. So you can see Frank right here is associated with these three values right here. Down at the bottom, we have a standings list for the for basically who has the most points, who's in first place, who's in second place, who's in third. And one thing to note is you can see over here, it's generally a four-player max game. A lot of times what they do is they actually combine one player into a group of people, but for the most part we support the 4-player. It takes the first two initials up here, so you can kind of associate who's. This is the full scoreboard right here. You can see right here that Emery and myself have open 18, but Frank hasn't. Therefore, we can still score on it. And there's a light green highlight to show whose current player's turn it is. And I'll turn it over to Frank to talk about the back end of it a little more.
Hi everybody. I'm going to talk about the back end design of the iPhone, the MRE integration, and the synchronization service. Here's what our class structure when we first started our program. We had a user interface, game logic, data management, and obligate sections. Because the iPhone Cocoa framework enforces the model view controller protocol very, very strictly, we have to split our class designs into several parts. And you can see that we have a UI classes on top, and it connects to our game logic, like player and throw at the bottom. And then we have the data management class that allows us to serialize our game logic into XML and vice versa, or actually connects to the outside world, to the internet. I'm going to talk about that later. But here's what we have now. Later on in our project, we decided to include the Motel runtime environment into our program. The Motel runtime environment allows us to send and receive messages from other iPhones. It's very simple, it's very easy to use. It is actually was created for Android, but we actually use our friend Jasper's port to iPhone. So we can now communicate with iPhone and Android. If somebody wants to port this application to Android, it is still going to work. MRE has a simple native Objective API, so it's easy and it's free. So here's what we have, our class structure. And when MRE comes in, we have two more classes. We have the root, the room management supports multiple rooms. So if you have like 6 people and you want to play 2 games simultaneously on the same Wi-Fi network, you can do that. And we have a receiver, which is I think it's a interface for Java, for Objective-C MRE. Yeah, here's what we have. And MRE integration allows us to actually duplicate the game logic of one phone and the other phone. Two phones works like it's identical. So you can see if I tap 16 here, the phones here will select 16 also. Kevin is going to show you that in our demo. So yeah, thank you for Thank you to the MRE team, everybody. Now I'm going to talk about the synchronization service. We have our application syncs to the central server that uses the ResLed API. So you can see the ResLed API connects to the MySQL database. And so we store game data, player ID, and all those informations, so that the web application and the iPhone application can share the same information. And the web application can use those data to generate the statistics of the game. The way the synchronization works is very easy. We have our communicator class. We use just a regular HTTP GET command. So we send the URL to the ResLed service, and we get it back. Very simple. So here's our communicator class. It allows an HTTP connection. We use Apple's built-in NSURL connection object, which allows us to open a TCP connection using a URL. And we delegate our request. So when, well, I'm going to talk about that in the later slide, but when the results comes in to the communicator class, it actually does not process the result itself, but it delegates it to the requester class. So here's what it looks like. You have a requester. The program logic says, okay, sync for me, please. Yes, sir, sure. And now, when the communicator got the result, it doesn't actually process it by itself. It sends a result with data error to the program logic. And the program logic may say thanks. So Kim is going to show us the demo of our our iPhone apps with MRE integration.
Alright, so we're going to kind of show off the networking portion of it as well, because we're pretty proud that we've got it working so far. It's going to be difficult. Alright, so a little cool thing we have is we have based on the accelerometer, this little USF logo that when you click it, it shows kind of like the credits of the game. It's kind of like a little fun thing. So we'll do multiple iPhones, and one thing that's important to know is also in like single player mode, you can actually, when you quit out of the game, you can restore the session in case you lose it. But anyway, so I'll go right here, I'll create a room. So we'll call it Marty. So it creates the room, and you can see the other iPhone automatically recognizes it. It picks up the message sent from the MRE. And like Frank said, this actually supports multiple rooms, so it's not just a single one. We can keep generate more and more if we want. So we selected. They want to join, yes. So here's where we're going to sign in. These are actually like usernames in our database. So we didn't want to keep typing it over and over again, so we have A and A. And we'll sign in with this guy. So both guys start up at the same time, they're all synced. This is our little info screen. Alright, so here's the info screen. This is kind of like basically what the app is. This explains the dark game rules of cricket, just in case you didn't know, because there's a lot of different variations of it. More rules, and then here's basically all the overlays look like. These are the different hash marks that come on top of the buttons. If there's a green overlay on it, that means you've opened the number, but not everyone else closes. That way you might as well go ahead and score on it. If it's orange, that means at least one person has opened the number. Red means everyone but you has closed the number. So as soon as you hit the number 3 times, no one can score on it anymore. Which is what this last overlay signifies. There's a red X through it. That means no one can score on it, and so you might as well move on to the next number. So here's the actual interface. You can see when I select one, it automatically changes the other guy. And so if you do let's say an 18 triple, huh?
Why is the 20 highlighted on the right?
Oh, that's just it's by default it starts off at 20, and we still have to change the highlighting of it. That's where we're still trying to figure out how to do that.
Oh.
But So here's the 18 triple. You can see that one, there's kind of two overlays on top of the button. You have the triple hash mark along with the green overlay. And so let's do like another 19, single, and then like a miss. So both guys bring up the scoreboard after every change, and it'll if you touch it when it comes up, it'll stay up. Otherwise, it'll disappear after 5 seconds to go on to the next one. So now it's this guy's turn. So like I said, the colors are associated with the name of the player, and one of the things we did integrate was a shake to undo feature. So I don't know how easy it's going to be to shake like this. But so you shake it, and you get like a little, do you want to undo or not? Yeah, sure. And so it erases from the scoreboard. And one of the cool things we liked was the history board. When you get like a lot of things going, it is completely scrollable right here. And let's see. So you can see the scoreboard right here. And then you can bring up any time by just pressing the score label. It's kind of a hidden button just because we kind of figure most people, because it comes up so often and you can see everything in the buttons anyway, it's not terribly like important to view yourself. And we have a little info button down here that will bring up the rules again for all that. And for testing purposes, we have kind of a forced game over just because I want to go through a whole game. That would take forever. So if we, okay, we'll do it on this guy. So this is this is what happens when the game over happens. It brings up the scoreboard. It says who wins with what score. We didn't score any, so it's 0. But one of the cool features we have is we have an email me. And what that does is it generates, can you see that? Okay. It generates an email through Apple's mail client that shows the result and who won, all the players that are in the game along with the colors. This actually right here prints out the entire history scoreboard that was on the left side. And down here we took a full screenshot of the final scoreboard so you can email to everyone who played and basically like keep track of it yourself. And that's it for the demo of the iPhone app.
Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about web application design and database design. For the web application development environment, I have used Eclipse and PHP Aptena plugin for the IDE and Adobe Dreamweaver for editing the CSS and jQuery. jQuery is a JavaScript library that I have used also. Some of this functionality at least, like zooming functionality on the dartboard. And Yahoo User Interface Library, YUI 2.0, I have used charting functionality on that to create charts from the statistics. And basically, I have used XHTML and CSS and jQuery for the view of the application. Module is created using JavaScript, and PHP is basically the controller which communicates through them, between them, and between the database, and also parsing the statistics from the database. What does it do? First of all, you basically go to the, instead of a slice of the dartboard like the iPhone app has, you have a whole dartboard in the application, because the dartboard is, because the web application has a view of bigger screen resolution, and you basically zoom to the dartboard still, because it's hard to differentiate between the double bullseye, single bullseye, or triple, double, single, that kind of things. And then map where the user clicked to a correct section, basically keeping track of the coordinates x, y, where the user clicked, and convert it into scores and sections, and then save the game information into arrays, JavaScript, and then send that to the database, and then receive that information and display charts and reports in the web application. For the database design, here's what it looks like in the relationship diagram. We have 3 tables. It's a pretty much basic database design. And users table, games table, and statistics table. The most important part is users and games table, which are important for the application game logic, basically. in the games table, most important fields is playbook field and also device ID fields to identify if that application, if that game has been played on the iPhone or the web application. And playbook is important because we go through all the hits and we parse them into XML, and then we store that in that database section just as a one hit instead of thousands of hits for every game. And then statistics table is basically parsing through that games table and regenerating itself and populating itself. Statistics, what kind of statistic do we track of? How often did I miss? Miss means here, other than 20 through 15 numbers, all of them will be count as a miss. And how often did I win, lose, and what's my margin of victory, defeats, like how many % of the time I win, or how many % of the difference in the scores. And what percentage of the hits belong to number 20 or 19 or that kind of information, basically percentile again. And extracting the statistics, to create those statistics, we go through that playbook field in the games table that I just showed you, and parse that player ID section and multiplier in that XML file. It's just one XML file with a bunch of entries in it, like maybe thousands of entries in it. And then we parse that, those tree information, and then we sort those values to the statistics table and mark that game as extracted so that we don't need to, we won't go to that same game and extract it again. How do we run this efficiently? Basically, we make those 4 tasks into cron job and run it so that we can run it anytime we want, and it will be automatically running. So, like running after midnight, so that the utilization of the computing resources will be ensured. And elimination of repetitive queries is one of the most important things that we consider doing that cron job, because, as I said, during a game there's like 2,000 entries into the database actually. But if we do that every time, every single time, iPhone application probably will have more trouble, because in every single time it has to connect to the database and go through that trouble, and well, it's basically its internet capability will be limited, more limited than web app. And also that will give lots of burden for the web server. And instead of that, we put just one query and send that information at the end of the game. This is what it's looked like, the XML data for just like 5 throws, basically 5 darts throws here. Multiplier is to track down single, double, or triple where the user hits, and section is the number basically. And player ID, when the player ID is -1, that means our player is a guest. To play that game, to play the dart game, you don't need to log into the system, but then you won't be able to track of the statistics of the game. And we basically convert that XML file into the database table structure so that we can access it and use the statistics and reports on it. And I will show you the demo for the web application. It's a video demo. Okay, this is Dart Game Keeper basic user interface. Play game accounts, you can go through editor account or login to account. And Dart Game Talk, I implemented also 501 game, which is a variation of 301 game, which is easier than the creative game. And number of players 3, 2. When we select this pop-up is basically an animation of the jQuery. I use jQuery there. Emre Frank logs in, and then it has been validated. And when we put start playing, then the dartboard will be appearing. This is an overlay to show the zooming. It will magnify the part that you're in and zoom in so that you can differentiate between here, for example, is that triple or double, to make that important. And double bullseye, single bullseye, it's hard to see even still in the big dartboard here. And there's a scoreboard on the right side in every row of those pages will appear. And in the dart chart, we basically go through that dartboard in the game section, and we click that. There is like 6 clicks in that game. And we map that into other images, and we put other dots on that dartboard so that the user later on can see, the points in a better way. Emirates hits are blue, and Frank's hits are dark brown. For example, Emirates 20 single, which is blue, so 20 single is keeping track of there, and Frank's 20 single, dark brown is here, is what it is about. And also scoreboard will show whose turn is it. Play-by-play is converting that information, all the hits, into English sentences, basically. And also scoreboard will show the scores also. And in statistics, we have two types of statistics we are tracking. General statistics and game statistics. For example, for this user, Emre, has played 4 games, 1 win, 3 games you lose, and display how often you win and how often you lose across all those 4 games. How often you hit a number 20 through 15, again across all those 4 games. And how often you missed. This is implemented again using YUI 2.0 charting functionality. And how often you hit a number 20 through 15, and how often you hit bullseye. This is important to see, for example, when you win a game, how you win that game, so that you can keep track of later. For example, in those 4 games, Emre won only this game, so I'm going to show you that statistics there. For example, you missed only 9% of the time, which means like every time you hit, you scored. It's something like that. Which makes you basically win that game. And you hit 20 most of the time, so that you score more than the others in order to hit your turn. That's about it. And progress and milestones. We have developed a database design and database schema and populate that database. And then develop the game logic for the iPhone and the web app. And also develop the game logic for the 501 and 301 game for the web application. But we are not keeping track of statistics for that right now. And graphic user interface for the iPhone and the web application. And scoring hits on top of buttons, which are overlays for the iPhone app only. XML REST for web service, and statistics for the web application.
So a few things we have left to do. We want to finalize the MRE integration. One thing specifically we want to do that we have like 80% working is kind of like a view-only mode for the creation of rooms that we have. So I mean, you're not actually in the game, so you block out everything, but you can still see what's going on. Like I said, we almost have that. We have like one glitch, which is why we didn't want to demo it right now. And first of all, none of us are artists. We want to be able to like kind of improve the graphical user interface of it, because also we didn't really have time to make everything look really fancy. And there's a few inconsistencies. Like Apple's really like harsh about keeping interfaces consistent all the way through. Or we have to change a few things. And then just like basic web application statistic improvements, like maybe adding in statistics we haven't thought of yet, etc. And so here's our information, emails, and like our sponsor is John at bodokai.com. He's actually in China right now, so he couldn't make it. And if you want to check out any like the documentation and any of that, you can visit this URL right now, right there. And any questions, Professor Wells?
How are you controlling this slideshow?
It's an iPhone application that just links to the Keynote specifically.
Through the Max Wireless. So.
Through wireless.
Yeah.
Just Wi-Fi.
Yeah. How do you close a number?
So you close a number. Well, the words "close" and "open" are used interchangeably. But basically, you open a number when you hit that number 3 times with the darts, as in 3 singles, a double, and a single, or a single triple. And then we say it's closed when everyone has opened that number.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in traditional scoring, you don't record where the darts actually land or anything like that, which this gives you.
Yeah, well, the web app version does, yes. Yeah, because the iPhone application, we actually originally used a full.
No, I'm just talking about it's in traditional when you're playing cricket.
Oh no, it doesn't matter. No,
You
it
don't-
does, yeah.
I mean,
No,
this
this
is
is strictly for like
advantage
statistics
that
and
that.
views, you know, just to measure
And you
accuracy.
do throw darts, you
Yeah.
don't just sort of peck at the.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, definitely, yeah. Anything else? Anyone?
Okay, well, let's thank our team.